Hi, Eric Linask with TMC coming to you from Cloud Expo in New York. Jerry, obviously an awful lot of excitement around cloud. Everybody's talking about it, a lot of people adopting it. About a year ago even, there was still a lot of talk, a lot of education, people not really sure what the cloud is all about. Where do we stand today?
Well, I think as you say, people are rushing to the cloud where they can. But what we're actually working with companies on is basically tackling inhibitors that are preventing certain groups from actually moving to the cloud. So if you think about some of the barriers to cloud adoption, what continually comes up are things like such as data privacy, so international data privacy laws that might require you to keep certain sensitive information in a certain jurisdiction. So let's say UK information needs to actually stay in the UK. There's compliance requirements that are sector-based, so for instance within healthcare, HIPAA data, PHI data needs to be encrypted before it can go into the cloud for processing or storage. And then there's various requirements that might be associated with working with the government, third-party obligations that need to protect certain sensitive data, safeguard it in certain ways. So what we do at PerspecSys with our solution is we allow people to actually keep the data, their sensitive data, within their control. So they keep the PerspecSys gateway on site, and we intercept the sensitive data before it goes out to the cloud for storage and processing. And we tokenize or encrypt the sensitive data, and that's the enterprise's decision on how they want to obfuscate the data. And then the other bit of what that's important in what we do is we preserve the functionality of the application. So what do I mean by that? So if my first name is tokenized before it goes to the cloud, first name Jerry, the end user of the application can still type in GER star in the search and pull back that record from the SaaS application, even though that data has been obfuscated. It's no longer in the clear in the cloud. And basically the way that it works, just go over here, is that we fit into the data flow as almost an interception proxy. So the data, the application is here, in this particular instance on an iPad, somebody's calling up a data record, it actually comes through the PerspecSys server. We actually then go out to the cloud, pull that information back down, we basically bring it back into the clear from an encrypted or a tokenized form, and then bring it back to the application. So net, what we're allowing is a whole class of use of the cloud to occur that couldn't occur before because privacy, residency, third-party obligations were blocking people from moving to the cloud.
How much of a factor is the growth in mobility when it comes to these privacy and security regulations?
It's a big issue because when we talk with CISOs and CIOs, the whole idea of bring your own device, people accessing from outside the enterprise just brings new threat vectors, new privacy vectors into the equation for CISOs. And that's why in this example we show an iPad, because more often than not, it's these devices that are actually the beginning of the conversation about, hey, people have access to this data now, certain data is private, it's moving across borders in the cloud, so we really need to control this from a CSO and a CIO perspective.
So you've understood which data needs to be kept private or geographically contained. What do you do for the rest of the data? Obviously that still needs to be secured as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. The enterprise can decide which data they want to deem as sensitive. So in our application, basically they have the ability to identify the data fields. Some will go through as clear text, some will go through as tokenized values, some could go through as encrypted values, and really strong encryption, like FIPS 140-2 for those that are crypto guys. So we support really strong encryption as well as tokenization and preserve that functionality. So with the clear data, that goes through because for whatever reason it's been deemed not to be sensitive by the organization. And what you then would look at, if you actually came into the SaaS application outside of the PerspecSys server, you would see that some of that information is clear, some of it's now stored and processed as tokens, and some is stored and processed as encryption. And what we find is that often enterprises could change over time. So something that they had been tokenizing, they can actually go back in and change to an encrypted value, and some that have been clear text, they might choose to make it token. So our application gives people the flexibility to change their policies over time.
So when you've got encrypted data, does the end user then need some sort of client-side decryption in order to access it?
Yeah, so with our application that's not the case, and really from a design principle perspective, we wanted to keep that sort of requirement out of the mix. So putting software on people's desktops and their clients was not a solution that we thought was tenable within the enterprise. So with us, they can actually just use the native SaaS application in the cloud, they call it from their browser, and this is basically just a URL redirect. So instead of going just natively to the cloud, they'll actually come through the PerspecSys server. Again, that could be deployed on site, or we have people that deploy it in their infrastructure as a service partner. So an example would be a Fujitsu that actually can deploy PerspecSys in essence as a service before the data goes to the public cloud.
does this add to the complexity that the IT department has to deal with?
Yeah, from our design principle standpoint, we took an open standards-based approach. It's a software solution that gets deployed on a Linux server, so it's not a complex solution at all to deploy or maintain. And in many ways, I think people would say that this decreases the complexity of the IT and the security officers' world, because now they have a way to actually keep the data in their control and intact, as opposed to just flowing out to the public cloud where they really feel there's a kind of a trust factor they're not unaware of, and then also just a data location and data portability set of concerns that no longer exist because they actually hang on to the data now.
Are you seeing increased adoption of cloud thanks to capabilities like such as you're providing?
Yes, absolutely, and we partner with a number of SaaS providers such as Oracle to actually enable them to overcome these sorts of pushback and these sorts of sales inhibitors when they're bringing their applications to market. So this solution is very much tuned to the current set of needs, and the ability to actually, as I said, change these obfuscation approaches over time gives the enterprise the ability to adapt to any future changes that might occur in these privacy and regulatory requirements.
Excellent, thank you, Jerry.
Sure, thank you.
I'm Eric Lanask with TMC from Cloud Expo. Follow my chat with Jerry and all my other interviews from Cloud Expo at my Twitter account, eLanask.